Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Comic Mistakes.
Comic Mistakes.
Comic Mistakes.
Our new podcast, not a spin-off, but a sister show. I was going to say sister city to Theme Team Problems.
This is what happens when you're having a conversation and one person goes off into this rant that kind of spirals. And this is this podcast.
So the idea of this podcast is that we're going to talk about comic books, but specifically we're going to talk about mistakes in comic books, or should I be more clear? Stories in comic books where they just ended, or they had a cliffhanger and it never got resolved again, or no writer's ever going to come back to the plot line again.
So maybe a story is dropped or a character is just never seen again.
And we're going to talk about stuff like that. So here is me, Randy Gomez, and here is Chad Thompson.
Yes.
And we are going to talk to you about our comic mistakes that we found. So I don't know who wants to go first. I don't know if you want to go first or I should go first.
Okay. Many people have favorite characters, and usually because they're popular or they're powerful or they're dynamic or they're written well for a long time. I have a character that I want to know more about and want to see more because of how interesting I think they are, except in world, they're very not interesting and no one's interested in making them interesting.
Chad, I am a New Warriors fan. I understand exactly what you're coming from.
So, way back when, after Secret Invasion, there was a little thing called the Initiative, where they wanted a team of Avengers in every state. The 50-state initiative. Now, in that, heroes or people with powers had to register to be able to be heroes. There was no more lone vigilantes allowed. You had to become part of the government. You had to register with them. You had to display and log your powers, who you are, where you lived, and where you would be. Your
public identity
active.
And all
your
that.
Public identity, your secret identity, which didn't matter. It would be code names now, but it wouldn't matter because somewhere someone would know exactly who you are. And the argument against that was like, databases get hacked. People lose information. People say things, do things. Nothing's safe. So these people who have secret identities to keep...
sorry about the train break.
I know. It's very late. So people who wanted to keep themselves safe didn't want to register, didn't want to become public, or even become known to any entity because their identity could be compromised at some point. So you had people fighting against that, and you had people who said, okay, I'll agree, or weren't given much choice to agree. So in the 50-state initiative, you had young people generally with powers who were being trained how to use them to become effective heroes. And they would either be selected for certain teams, or they would go back to their home state and become an Avenger of that state once they were cleared for active duty. Now, one such individual who had interesting powers and was part of the initiative and part of young people who were being trained had an ability to where he was completely, utterly invincible. Nothing could hurt him.
Wait. Okay.
His name was Emery Shrub. And when he showed up and he was asked by Taskmaster, what is your name? He called himself Boulder, which would make sense based on his powers. He's slightly overweight and he can't really be hurt. He's a big old rock that you can't crack. Now, in figuring out what can he do, what can he not do? Well, he's not very fast, and he's not very strong, and he's of average human intelligence, and he is completely indestructible. Cannot be scratched, cannot be punctured, cannot be blown up, cannot drown, cannot be poisoned, does not experience the ill effects of radiation or extreme heat. He is literally invincible.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've seen the power scales they used to do for Marvel characters, usually from 1 to 7, his durability is maxed out at 7. He's among one of the most durable living creatures anywhere. But all his other stuff is either at 1 or 2 for intelligence. Now, he couldn't get any stronger because, as they put it, his physical state is frozen at the moment his power is activated.
Okay.
So he can't gain muscle mass. He can't lose weight. I believe
Can he age?
Later on in some of his other appearances, it's postulated that no, he doesn't age, because there was, I believe, a creature called Hybrid, and it feeds off of life force, and it had said something to the effect of, I can feed on him forever.
So he's kind of
he doesn't die.
He's in like a perpetual state of stasis. Sort of.
Yes. Like he's active and conscious and can move and can eat and can... That's the other thing, is they had said, like, in trying to see if they can get him to lose weight, it was thought of as a near starvation diet might get him to lose weight in a couple of years.
So, or maybe it's like just completely his time... his body moves at such a low time, in a cellular level.
If that actually worked and he was able to lose weight, theoretically, it's because his body was, actively, moving so slow, metabolism wise. But yeah, like he's perpetually stuck in this invulnerable state, but can't do anything about anything else. To the point where they're like, you know what? We can't think of an active role for you. And it was recommended two different people. I believe the people, I think both Hank Pym and then later Captain America. Like, you can't be on the front lines, but you'll be great for like search and rescue, hazardous area exploration, other stuff where you can't really get hurt no matter how dangerous it is. You can go where other people can't, but you can't necessarily take on even a medium level villain.
Well, does he have like advanced stamina? Can he just run forever?
Technically, yes. Because he can't be affected by his environment, he can move on a track for 18 hours and not break a sweat. But he's moving as fast as a regular person who is overweight and isn't a runner, even a sprinter, will move. So, yeah, he can technically walk forever, but walk. And he made a few appearances here and there for, I guess, the next year or two. Yeah, about 2 years. For the next about 2 years, he made several appearances in, I think, Dark Reign, when that was happening. In a few other stories, I think something called the Shadow Initiative, if I'm saying that right.
So basically, like, he sparingly showed up in the sorry, I was going to call it MCU. In the Marvel Universe.
In 616, yes.
In the 616 universe, he just, like, showed up every once in a while, but he didn't have the same prominence he had in the Initiative.
Like, okay,
Is that what you mean?
his powers were the same, but he was trying to be utilized. He was, okay, for a moment during Dark Reign, he was propped up as like a propaganda piece because he was from the Midwest, because he was an everyman who just so happened to also be invulnerable. He was propped up as this hero of the Initiative. He's like, hey, this guy's normal, but he has powers. He signed up and so should you, type of deal. Just kind of using it as this front man, as this poster child. And he was used here and there. Like, there was one instance where they had to retake the prison in the negative zone. And him and a few other low-level kind of villains were used as the first strike force. Mostly to thin out and exhaust the powers, abilities, and stamina of the enemy so that the actual non-expendable heroes can come in the second wave and actually do what they came there to do. And he didn't find out till later because he didn't need to, and he didn't have to worry because, hey, he's invulnerable, and maybe some alien has some weapon or ability that would actually hurt him. We don't know. Nothing on Earth can hurt him, but he's not very useful. So if he does manage to get hurt, no big loss on their end, which is, Norman Osborn strategizing.
I was gonna say, I'm like, wait, this is. For a second, I was like, "Wait, Iron Man said this?"
This is Norman. When Norman was in charge.
Oh, he was going with the Dark Reign at first because he didn't know any better.
Yeah, he didn't know it because from the initiative, because he wasn't useful, and they said, "Hey, you could always do like search and rescue stuff." He technically was ejected. He's like, "All right, you got your completion sticker. You got your
basic training bit."
Yeah, you're like you're cool. You're cool. Go home. We can't put you in active duty, but
when we need you, we'll call you because we have your number.
I don't even think that.
No, well, it kind of makes sense if it's only for search and rescue. It's like, well,
no, they didn't even say like we're gonna use you for search and rescue. We're just saying like we can't use you for active duty. You're written off as completing whatever you needed to complete.
Okay.
For the registration, we can't train you. We can't make you a better fighter. We can't make you faster, stronger, way less. We literally can't do anything to you because nothing can be done to you. That's the drawback of your power in its current form. Nothing can be done to change who you are physically. So we can't use you. Go home. But you're a fully registered, powered person. Good luck with life. And then not till Dark Reign was he brought back up into Camp Hammer and the Shadow Initiative, run by Norman Osborn, and still Taskmaster because it's Taskmaster. And then he later appears in Avengers Academy for a while. He appeared, I think, in a guest spot when they were doing the Avengers Academy book. And later on, here and there, and I believe one of his last appearances was AVX, and then a little bit after AVX, dealing with the Young Avengers.
He's not a mutant, right?
As far as I remember, no, they didn't claim he was a mutant.
Okay, so...
Plus, that was that whole thing when the mutants were happening where there were no new mutants.
Oh, that's true. So, wait, so this character is completely invulnerable, and he was used sparingly throughout the eras, but, like, as of right now, in the current 616
as
universe,
of right now, his
whereabouts are unknown?
The last I can find of him was late 2012, maybe early 2013. I gotta find the exact publication date and issue where he appeared with the Young Avengers, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But that was supposed to have happened after Avengers vs. X-Men. And then there's no more mention of him. So either he was in the background somewhere, but even then, he's usually mentioned as being there.
So, okay, what do you feel happened to this character? So, like...
Well, they haven't shown him die.
Trying to... I feel here a comics mistake. We're trying to figure out the mystery, sort of. We're trying to figure out exactly, as close as possible we can, with the research we've done through the comics, what happened to these characters, or storylines, or whatever. What do you feel happened to this character? Could it have been an editorial thing? Could it have been an in-universe thing? What do you think happened?
I don't think it was an in-universe thing, because at his heart, he wants to be helpful. He wants to be a hero. I think it comes down to people not knowing what to do with a character.
Which is a very common thing.
Yeah, he's very, very, very specific. And it was even thought of when he came out as this invulnerable person, that at the time that the registration was happening, they had what they called, I believe, spin tech. It was like this little dart, and it would inject nano nanobots in a person, and it would basically be like a power dampener. But because of who he is and his powers, he couldn't penetrate his skin, and his metabolism wouldn't incorporate those things into his body. So he couldn't even temporarily turn off his powers to lose weight, become a better fighter, gain muscle, become faster. So he was just perpetually stuck. So every little thing that's been mentioned about him, he's technically immortal, because it doesn't look like his cells are aging or being damaged or anything. I think more than one occasion they've said his body's frozen.
Is there... Okay, so I have another question about him. Has he ever showed up, in any alternate realities? So, characters like this that are...
That I'm not sure of.
Okay. Because I was gonna bring up, Wonder Man, for example.
Yes.
Where he's technically immortal.
Technically, yes.
So, he has shown up, in Guardians of the Galaxy, which takes place in the year, I think 3000?
I believe so, yes.
So, he shows up in that because he's technically immortal. But I don't know.
Also, the
Butterball
miniseries My Fair Superhero, where he's also in the future, kind of a dystopian future, slightly.
Wonder Man?
Wonder Man. It was a good read. I enjoyed it.
Okay, but nothing like that's really... So, I guess in a way, it's just that the writers don't care about Butterball so much that
they just haven't tried to make him more interesting, which they kind of don't need to, because just his character itself is compelling. It reminds me a lot of the perception of the young pre-super soldier serum Steve Rogers, where
that makes a lot of sense.
He wants to help people, but he's not necessarily helpful. Just with the reverse of not having a super weak body
to make him.
He has a super. Yeah, he has a super durable body, but he still can't really be helpful in that same way that he wants to be.
He's like a Snorlax.
Yes.
He'll stay there, and he's gonna stay there the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. And technically, you're right. He could be in an alternate reality where his powers are slightly different and he's more useful. He could be seen in a possible future where maybe they're correct. Maybe that near starvation diet would actually have him lose weight. Maybe an outside power is able to temporarily turn off or modify his abilities to where he could exercise, weight train, fight train, and become useful.
Wait, so he can't even fight train?
He technically has the stamina, but he's not strong. He's more
so his strikes wouldn't do
anything. He has normal human everything.
That's not the worst.
It's not, but again, a medium level villain, it's not gonna do anything. He's at most,
the villain could just go around him.
Yeah,
usually.
Yeah, probably literally outrun them, even if they weren't, moving at any kind of super speed or flying or incredibly maneuverable. Or they could probably just get around him regularly.
Well, okay, so. Okay, one of the big things about immortality that always gets brought up is that the big trouble with it is that you can get trapped in some way where a normal human will die. And so that's the end.
Yes.
They're technically out of that trap, quote unquote. They're not trapped anymore because they're dead. But someone like Butterball, let's say an earthquake happens and the building he's in collapses, if nobody is able to get him or knows he's there, he's just going to be trapped there for the rest of his existence. Not life, existence.
That did happen to him, and they didn't recover him for a week.
Oh.
Or 3-4 days. I forget exactly how long it was, but exactly that happened. Well, he was caught under a building, and of course he survived because he wasn't hurt. But they weren't able to get him out for a few days.
Okay, somebody without any extraordinary physical abilities, but a extended lifespan where they cannot die, that is kind of the weak point. Where it's like, well, if there's a point where you can't physically get out of the situation you are and nobody knows you're there, like if an avalanche happens in Everest, like we're not gonna exactly know who's under it because it's so big and like it's gonna take forever to get down to the middle of Everest.
Yes. Although,
so
okay.
that could explain the alternate reality thing where he's not in a bunch of alternate reality stories. He could have just been, because he is a regular person, been trapped in some way. Because statistically, the longer you live, the longer the chances of something like that happening to you, where it's almost guaranteed it's going to happen to him.
Yeah. But okay, in your postulation, you did give me an idea, because I was thinking like, okay, he can't be useful any other way, and yes, he would technically live forever, and his body would probably be that of, I believe, a 15, 16-year-old. I forget exactly how old he was, but he's a teenager. He'd be a teenager forever. And I thought, what can you really do? And usually when you have somebody who is immortal, who lives forever, they either go mad, go power hungry, or they accumulate knowledge. And I was thinking of how he could be useful and how he could be used again.
I also have one, but you go first.
Now, it might be the same one, it might be completely different.
Okay, we'll see.
But how
director... Okay, you go first? Okay, at the same time.
Dr.
Director
Strange.
Shield. Okay.
Okay. He can learn magic. Okay. Doctor Strange.
He could be the ultimate spy.
That too. Actually, yes. He could eventually know everything. He can learn every language eventually. He can learn and study with scientists and be like, okay, well, you don't have to worry about losing notes because I'll just remember everything. But I also thought, well, how did Doctor Strange become Doctor Strange? He learned magic. He studied. He read old tomes and learned the symbols and the gestures and the knowledge and acquired some items also. But that's how he can come and be A, in the future, or B, very soon right now as a magic user. Because you can learn magic. You've seen it with Doctor Strange, as he studied and became a magic user and eventually Sorcerer Supreme. He didn't have to have innate magic abilities as some other people had. It's something you can learn, and if nothing else...
It depends on the continuity of Strange, but yeah, a lot of the point of Doctor Strange is that like he can learn it, and anyone else could have been there at the Ancient One's temple and have learned those abilities.
Yeah. So, he can be a wizard. He can study and learn how to practice magic.
He could be one of the greatest pupils of the Ancient One. Or I guess in that case, it'd be pupil of Doctor Strange.
He can be the new Ancient One.
Even more ancient.
Even more ancient because he'll live forever. He can be the forever Ancient One. Eventually.
Hello, this is Randy Gomez.
And Chad Thompson.
And this is Comic Mistakes.
True.
We're here. This is the second part of our first episode. And we talked about Butterball for our first half. True. And, okay, now I want to bring up the topic that I wanted to discuss.
Ultimate Doctor Strange.
Okay, a very specific thing. What happened to Doctor Strange in the Ultimate Universe? What happened to Doctor Strange?
Where did he go? Why did we never see him again?
Okay, so... Okay, the weird thing to me is the way he died and the circumstances around it, and I've been trying to figure out what exactly happened. So... Okay, let me, I guess, maybe discuss a little bit how Ultimate Doctor Strange works. So, he is technically Stephen Strange Jr.
Of course.
In the Ultimate Universe, he is the son of the original Doctor Strange.
Was he also a Sorcerer Supreme and practitioner of magic?
Okay, so the original Doctor Strange basically had the same origin as R616 Doctor Strange. His hands got messed up in a car accident, and here's the difference, though. There was other people in the car. His wife and unborn kid.
Okay.
And they both died in the car accident.
Okay.
He did not die, but his hands got fucked up. He went to the Ancient One to get some training, or to fix his hands.
Yes.
But instead he got the mystical training. And then in our universe, in their ultimate universe, he married Clea,
Good for
who
him.
was a student of him. Like, they were learning magic.
That's unethical.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, a student of him or a student with him?
A student of him.
That's unethical.
Because he had, come back as the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yes.
And they were doing that. And then she got pregnant. And the day she got pregnant, he, magically just disappeared.
Okay.
Immediately when she said it to him, he just blanked out of existence. She's also knows magic, so she was looking for him and couldn't find him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what happened to Doctor Strange's dad.
All right.
Nobody knows exactly what happened to him, not even him. And Clea was trying to keep his her son from following in his footsteps, but after a while, Wong came to them and was like, "Hey, you know who your dad was?" And it was like, "Oh shit!" And so he started to train under Wong.
Okay.
To become the new Doctor Strange. And as Doctor Strange in the 616, he was more of a celebrity magician. He was like a
Zatanna from DC.
Yeah, kind of, because he was like a showman and doing celebrity talk shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because he wasn't, he was still learning, but he was using a lot of it to, get girls and fame.
Right.
And so that's Ultimate Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Very different origins. I like the idea. So also it's implied by Nightmare that it doesn't stop at his father. It goes further back. So Ultimate Nightmare is invading Peter Parker's mind, and Doctor Strange is trying to expel him from his mind. And he mentions your father couldn't beat me. Your great-grandfather couldn't.
Oh,
and if I kill you now, your lineage stops here.
So it's literally a legacy. It's handed down.
Apparently, from that one,
if his claims are to be believed.
You see, okay, here's where it gets interesting. It changes from writer to writer, sort of.
Of course.
So, okay, the original story is written by Dr. Michael Brian Bendis. Brian Michael Bendis does the original appearance, and the subsequent more canon appearances are also by him. But then he is killed off in Ultimatum. That's when Doctor Strange is killed.
Okay.
Doctor Strange, and was it Hickman? No, it was Loeb. Jeff Loeb?
Sounds right.
With a J?
I believe.
Yeah. He's the guy who, in issue 4, killed off Doctor Strange in a very confusing way. So Hulk kind of explodes the Sanctum Sanctorum after the tidal wave hits.
Right.
And that releases Dormammu, who now has in his pendant the Human Torch, all of a sudden.
Yes.
Which gives him enough power to strangle Doctor Strange with his own cloak of levitation.
It all makes perfect sense.
And when that's when he says the lines of your father, your grandfather, none of them could beat me. You're no way as powerful as them, so I'm gonna kill you. And Doctor Strange is like, I'll find a spell. Eventually, they'll defeat you, and he gets killed with his own cape.
Right.
Or the belt, the yellow belt.
The sash.
Yeah, the sash.
Yeah.
Okay. And his head explodes.
As it does.
Yeah. And immediately, Dormammu starts walking away with his pendant of
Johnny Storm.
The house blew up, and Spider-Man is apparently very hurt.
As he usually is.
Yeah. And, okay, so I was like, when that happens, a body comes up to Doctor Strange's corpse, and it's like, oh, I can't believe this happened to you. He says something like that, oh, what a terrible tragedy. And he's glowing, sort of, and picks him up.
Okay.
We don't know who that figure is. but a figure comes up to his body and is mournful about his death and takes him away.
Okay.
And that's the last we see of Doctor Strange in the Ultimate Universe in any way.
In any form, in any incarnation.
And here's the weird thing to me. I was trying to figure out more about the circumstances around his death. So I read more of the issues around his death. So in Ultimate Spider-Man, they kind of show what happens right before the Sanctum Sanctorum explodes. We get some backstory. Spider-Man is there in the Sanctum with Strange and Wong, and he's getting a tour from them. Like, oh, here's our portal and things. And this portal is very important not to ever get fucked up by any tidal wave. And it's the portal between dimensions, and it holds like shit like Nightmare, which you fought, you know.
Yes.
We don't want to break it. If this skyline window made by the Ancient One gets broken...
And is that the symbol you usually associate
yes.
with? Okay.
If that gets broken, it will release everyone. Also, if me and Wong die, also, the seals will be broken.
Yes.
And there is like, what if all of that happens? That can't happen. And then cut to...
Uh-huh.
Yes. The house is going crazy. It's Spider-Man and Hulk, and... Hulk is just fighting the house, which makes it explode. In which he breaks this mirror thing, orb, which holds Nightmare, and he starts attacking both Hulk and Peter Parker with their ultimate nightmares again.
Yes.
Which, for Hulk, it's all the dead bodies of everyone he accidentally killed. So... like a bunch of zombies are basically trying to come after him, and for Peter it's like his Uncle Ben with a fucking gunshot in his head and all these bad guys because he's Spider-Man and he, you know, all this shit.
Yes.
And it's pretty messed up, and I like how it's written, and it makes it more sad how bad Ultimatum was. That This was so good. This is still a Brian Michael Bendis, I'm pretty sure. It was, because this was like issue 123 before it resets. And it's very good. And then at the end of the issue is where things get weird. So Nightmare and Dormammu both get killed in weird ways, what makes me kind of question Doctor Strange.
Okay.
So at the end of the issue, Hulk kills Nightmare by... crushing him.
All right.
So he chases after him, and Nightmare is visibly scared, runs into the mirror thing, and Hulk crushes it. And crushes him, like physically crushes him.
Yes.
Which explodes in magic energy in the middle of New York after the tidal wave. And yeah, then he's kind of magic crazy for a while.
As he does.
But, like, assumedly, it looks like Spider-Man's dead, but he's not dead yet. This is, like a few months before that.
Yeah.
So. We're still talking about Ultimate Doctor Strange and the mystery surrounding his death.
Yes.
And I had just mentioned how Hulk had killed Nightmare. In a very odd way, he just kind of crushed him. And then I brought up Dormammu.
Yes.
Who also unceremoniously was taken out of the equation in the Ultimate Universe by the Fantastic Four.
By half of the Fantastic
Four. It was Susan and Ben. They stopped him and they freed Johnny, and then it was revealed that it was just a guy. Dormammu was just a guy. And we're given a speech earlier by Reed where he says, oh, magic doesn't exist. It's just science we don't understand. And he's kind of proven right later in the Ultimate Universe because him as the Maker is able to kill all of Asgard, which was magic, by absorbing the energy because it's just energy that's powering it.
It's just energy.
Any sort of energy. So Ultimatum and the death of Doctor Strange kind of brings into question what exactly is magic and how magic works in the Ultimate Universe. And I was just saying, none of that makes sense, but I could understand only just because they're all different writers, and working under the same universe, nobody's gonna be on the same page.
Yeah, I think main edict was make sure everybody dies, or make sure as many people die as possible, and we'll just clean it up after.
That's kind of what Ultimatum was, which, again, there's so many loose ends in Ultimatum that never got him back to.
Yes.
Like I brought up to you, the Jocasta program.
You mentioned that earlier.
Which, again, never came back. Okay, but anyway, so back to Strange. So the character, I guess the idea is that he was so inexperienced that a weak magic wielder who didn't have as much training, but with the augmented abilities of the Human Torch, was able to defeat him.
That seems to be the logical conclusion,
I guess, but you wouldn't know that, and they don't bring it up again. But that doesn't explain what exactly happens to the body of Dr. Strange Jr.
Yes. So it seems like there's several threads left open that weren't closed, like when and why did this supposed legacy start if Nightmare was telling the truth? Is it a long line of, being passed down through through parent to child, maybe not exactly father to son, but more than likely. Is it a magic thing where they're technically all Stephen Strange, but in some other way? Did his essence get transported to his now newborn son, new body, when Clea informed him that she was pregnant?
I didn't even think about that.
Like, okay.
My thinking was, okay, so the way I saw what happened was that the original, or as far as we know, original Doctor Strange, the father of Doctor Strange Jr.
of the current, Ultimate Doctor Strange,
he somehow or in some way sacrificed his unborn child and wife for exchange for the powers. There's no way to confirm any of this. Right. This is the Ultimate Universe where things could get quote-unquote more realistic or grittier.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, the original Doctor Strange isn't a hero the way his son is, or is portrayed as.
Okay.
That's what I thought why would you mention the fact that his whole family died and that he got a new family?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And because of the fact that's the way he was able to get these extraordinary magical abilities, I don't know, there was a price in some way, and so that's why he had to leave. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he is Nightmare, or maybe, you know what I mean?
Now, okay, I have at least one question. Do we know what happened with Clea?
Oh, she aged normally and just raised his son.
So at the time he's active as Doctor Strange, she's an older woman who used to practice or still practices magic?
Clea now is old, as she was, but when they met, it's just she was young.
Okay. Because
they were of similar ages, and
at that time. Now, what you brought up makes me think, she was a student of. What if there was a bargain, and it was something along the lines...
I come to bargain.
It was something along the lines of, promise me the soul of your firstborn child. Now, it could have been something he would accept easily, more easily, considering, my firstborn child is now dead. Their soul, I can't get them back. I can't bring that child and my wife back to life. What if that family that he thought he was sacrificing because they were already dead for these abilities wasn't what he was promising? What if it was his new child that he was going to have, his firstborn child, with this new family that he was creating?
Post-Strange magic powers.
Yes, and maybe he disappeared to try and, I don't know, nullify that agreement, or find a way to get out of it, and just never came back and was never brought up again. Like, that could have been the idea behind the original writer's thought process, and then it never got covered anywhere else by them or anyone else.
That's true. There's a lot... Well, okay, Ultimate Universe, a lot of things don't come back.
True. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Ultimate Daredevil doesn't come back, really. I don't think that is canon to the Daredevil that shows up in the Ultimate Universe again. Right. Who again dies in Ultimates. right after Ultimate Knights. So half of the Ultimate Marvel Knights die, at least.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the person, glowing and picking up the body and remorsing over the tragic death, my thought was, what if it is his father reclaiming his body?
That's the only one that I could think makes sense. It could be his father, his mother. Could kind of make sense.
Possibly, it could be her. Yes,
like Wong died apparently.
Yes, for some reason Wong's gone.
No mention of his name, but we are to assume he died in the tidal wave.
Yes,
and the collapsing of the building via Hulk.
Yeah, so if it was supposed to be Wong and they just didn't mention him by name, that's a possibility, but unlikely, because again, some people just don't get mentioned after a while. And
maybe here's a tricky. What if it was like the original Ancient One in that world, or something like that?
I mean, it could have been,
because if it's a lineage that's supposed to go further back, maybe the original Doctor.stange is the Ancient One, and he's actually blood related to the Ancient One.
Oh, maybe.
Like the original,
it could
whoever.
Be that. Yeah, it could be that's the person who started it. They had a child either before or after obtaining the power, and then that's the family line.
Because we're not given much like about the Ancient One in that world, except like apparently what we're told by Dr.stange, where it's like, I learned all my magic from him.
Yeah. And I'm assuming we don't know if they were killed like in 616.
No, we don't know exactly.
So they could still actually be alive.
That's true. And
it could have been that they weren't technically dead, a la D&D. They were at 0 hit points. They were unconscious. So maybe their body was reclaimed, and maybe they were going to be healed, and maybe they were going to train under the actual Ancient One instead of Wong and become a full-fledged Sorcerer Supreme, as their father was, as apparently their forefathers were, supposedly, if Nightmare was telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just never used. It just didn't get picked up again, didn't get used by anybody. Writers change, editors change, universes die. And it was just never covered again, and never got to be picked up by anybody who could write that story and bring him back as like actually effective magic user.
So in his appearance in the Ultimate Universe, Dr.stange, when fighting Nightmare, there is a vision of Dr.stange's father, the original Dr.stange, and saying, he says something along the lines of like, my son, I don't know exactly what it is. He's like, he calls to his son, and the Dr.stange Jr. says like, I can't believe you would use a illusion of my father. That's just making me madder.
Yeah.
But when I first read it, I was kind of confused. I was thinking, is that his father, like, coming back through some sort of, dimensions,
Did he encounter Nightmare?
Was that actually his father?
Like, yeah.
At first I was like, it made me, because like he doesn't really do anything. So I say, my son, my boy. So it makes me think, oh wait, was that his dad?
Was that actually his dad?
Yeah, because right after that, Nightmare loses.
Yeah,
and is expunged from Peter Parker in a very sad issue, because it's a whole issue of his deep insecurities and sadnesses. It's very sad.
So a regular issue of Spider-Man.
It ends so... Okay, no. I can't delve into it.
That's not this episode.
Because it ends with, like, Mary Jane in the rain, like, we're about to go on a date. And, like, our fancy date. And, like, I don't know. I'm like, I cry easily. And it's like, oh, this is going to make me cry. But, like, I thought that was actually his father, and his father is looking over him in some way in an astral form or something.
Yeah, or locked out of this dimension somehow.
Yeah.
Or, he's active somewhere but can't really affect this plane of existence anymore.
But we can't know that. Ultimatum happened and there's no mention of that. Wouldn't Nightmare mention that in some way?
Maybe.
when Dormammu mentioned them.
No, because he's a dick.
Apparently. Also, was that guy trapped in that weird orb then?
Oh.
Because he just pops out of the building. And again, I'm not exactly sure how he captured the Human Torch. In the Ultimate crossover, in the tie-in, he does... That's when he captures him. But I was still confused, so I don't super understand how that happened.
It was magic. It's a form of energy, and heat is a form of energy. So he directed it into his amulet.
I guess. We've learned very little, and I don't think we're ever going to solve it because the Ultimate Universe is basically, at this point, defunct.
But again, and as I hope happens with each of these episodes, after speaking about it, I just want the answers more. And I want the character more.
When I first saw the dev, I was kind of confused because I thought it was like a kid picking up the body.
Right.
I don't know why in my head I thought it was a kid, but like looking back at it, it's like, oh, it looked more like an adult. So it's probably the father. Maybe they were going to do something. Maybe a lot of the deaths involving an ultimatum, they were going to do something with, and most of them they weren't done with. Janet Van Dyne, nothing was done with, but they set up the fact that, oh, something's going to happen with this. Doctor Strange, it seems like they were setting it up. Even he was in the cover of that issue, but he had like 4 appearances in the Ultimate Universe. Nobody knew Doctor Strange existed in that universe.
Yeah.
Unless you're reading Ultimate Spider-Man. So it seems weird to me that they were setting up all these deaths. Only one of the deaths kind of had a payoff in any way, and that was Daredevil. Because after he died, Stick came back and trained a new Daredevil. I think it was New Ultimates. It was the volume 3.
Okay.
He trained a blind kid. It was just like a blind kid.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to train you to be the new Daredevil. And he had the yellow and red costume and all that stuff. And then they got attacked by vampires and became vampires.
Of course.
And that's how Ultimate Daredevil died again. So, okay. Hopefully we'll get some more answers. We can make more definitive guesses and figure this out better. But that's kind of the point here. We're just pointing towards these things that never got resolved, trying to get as much information as we can. Hopefully we can think of an answer, but most of the time I don't think we're gonna be able to. No,
there's always gonna be more questions than answers.
Yeah, especially with comics, the way some writers decide to ignore other writers.
Yes. Sometimes accidentally, sometimes very much on purpose.
Yeah, and this was the second part of our first episode of Comic Mistakes. I almost forgot the name. We don't have any sort of social media at the moment, but we're going to try to keep Comic Mistakes as the name. Comics like comic books and mistakes like mistakes. And thank you for listening. If you're listening, yeah. Hopefully episode 2. I was gonna say issue 2.
Maybe we should say issue 2.
No. Okay. Bye.
Bye.